What a fantastic speaker. We have to be going into a little bit about what he does, his background, and so on. So I won't repeat too much. But suffice to say that, he's worked in a lot of large organizations, companies like Tiger Brands, ABSA. So we've got retail, we've got banking sectors, and he's, as he says, you get a lot of bang for your buck here. He's a CEO, he's an author, he's got a brand new book he's just released over the last few days. And I think with all of that in mind, um, self mastery seems to be at the forefront. And I think we all are interested in having topical discussions around this, where you've got so much on the go, so much to juggle, so much to do, as Alistair has had pretty much most of his working career. But how do you make sense of it all? How do you prioritize? How do you still come through this with a strong sense of purpose and achieve the things that you really wanted to do in the sea of chaos? So I think with that in mind, I'm going to hand you over to Alistair, and he can take us away. Looking forward to it, Alistair.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thanks for the wonderful welcome. Morning, everybody, on this cold Monday morning. My name is Alistair. Alistair is the Scottish version of the Greek name Alexander, which means protector of people, defender of men. Haupalelu means never fails, or infallible, or invincible. And then Mokoena, my surname, Mokoena is the Tswana word for crocodile. And legend has it that these crocodiles used to stand on riverbanks and help the people from the Mokoena clan cross rivers. So with that in mind, my purpose for me is very clear: to help people to make a difference. And that's why I do the things that I do. So I am a few months away from turning 50. I'm a father of two. I've been working in corporate for the last 29 years, and I now find myself doing lots of interesting things, including speaking to people across world stages. I've just come back from Harvard University, where I was speaking at a conference, and a couple of months ago, I spoke at Oxford University, and I speak at many universities and business schools in South Africa and in a few neighboring countries. And I do a lot of keynotes at conferences as well as graduation parties. So in terms of my journey, my career started with Unilever, where I was a brand manager in the late 90s, doing home and personal care marketing. And then I transitioned to Tiger Brands to do food marketing as a senior brand manager. I spent some time at South African breweries as a marketing manager, building many brands. And I was a marketing director for Cadbury. And then after that, I decided enough of specialism. I want to get into general management. So my first managing director job was running an agency called FCB. And then after that, I had the privilege of being a CEO of Ogilvy in South Africa, where we won many awards as Agency of the Year, as Agency Leader of the Year. And then after that, I decided to run big tech. So I spent the last 5 years or so running Google's business across Southern Africa. And then at the end of July 2024, I decided that after 28 years in corporate, I am retiring from my corporate career to spend the second half of my life teaching, speaking, consulting, advising people. And that's when I took up a professorship at Northwest University Business School, where I teach marketing as well as international business. And this is a continuation of a 15-year-old academic career, which I built on top of being a corporate leader. So apart from being a CEO, I've been a practicing professor for a number of years, whether it's Joburg Business School, whether it's UCT GSB, whether it's Northwest University, and writing many, many articles, academic articles, and publishing widely, and also writing books. And that's the space I find myself in now. So my academic qualifications, I started off with a BCom. I did an LLB. My first rodeo was that of being a lawyer. And then I did an MBA, as most people do. I have a management development program, executive development program. I have a PhD, and one doctorate isn't enough these days. So I've just finished my second doctorate, a DBA, and I'm also a chartered marketer in South Africa. As Paul said, I'm a published author. My first book is Servings of Self-Mastery, which I published and launched 2023, and it's done really well. It's a very popular book. And the sequel to that, which launched about a week ago, is the Self-Mastery Journal, which is a series of questions and exercises for the reader, which is great for training, great for facilitating workshops. I've also developed cards. So I take these questions and exercises out of the book, and I turn them into cards to, to break the ice, to give them to delegates in conferences and get people talking, which is how I get action learning going. So really great book. It's about self-mastery. You have to be able to lead yourself before you can lead others. It's about reminding you of your agency to put your best foot forward. It's about being a net positive contributor. It's about making sense of chaos in a very complex world. Just as we're getting used to the VUCA world, we're introduced to the Bani world, where everything is brittle, everything is nonlinear, everything's so different and unpredictable. But what I'm trying to do with my books is create a what if movement. So to shift us from acknowledging the challenges we face to saying, so what am I going to do about it? And the what if world is about creating a world that you desire. It's about reminding you that you have the power and the agency to really create a different trajectory, to change the narrative in your head, to silence all those negative, critical, and judgmental voices in your head, and really uplift the optimist and be your own coach and be your own mentor. So it's just a reminder that we all have it within ourselves to change our situation, and really go after our life purpose and create a different narrative for ourselves. So that's what the book is about. And in the first couple of weeks post-launch, the book was #1, which was really, really amazing. And then I've contributed to a couple of books. One of them is a book that every marketer should read. I have a chapter in there. Also a book that every leader should read. I've got a chapter in there. I've also been invited to write forewords for quite a number of books. I've just mentioned a few of them here. One has been the Brave Code by Musa Kalenga, and When Crisis Strikes by Francis Hood and Nicola Klein. And then the third book, The Social Brain, was written by a couple of folks from Oxford Business School as well as Oxford University, and they asked me to do a foreword for that, which has really been amazing. And I've traveled the world speaking at different stages across different topics, whether it's leadership in general or self-mastery or digital marketing or indeed digital technology and digital transformation. And recently I've been doing a lot of talks around artificial intelligence as well as sustainability, really focusing on the human in the loop. I've done lots of corporate gigs, corporate conferences, whether it's Old Mutual or SAB or Nedbank IMC, Liberty recently. I've spoken across a few Southern African countries also. And that's something that I really, really enjoy, just sharing my knowledge, speaking from the heart, building on the 28 years of experience, the academic experience that I've had teaching people writing, training, and really trying to bring audiences to life. Done lots and lots of media coverage over the years, lots of interviews, lots of op-eds and so on. And this is something that I just keep on doing, just to kind of spread the word. I've also have received quite a few awards, whether it's Distinguished Alumni Awards at Rhodes University or Northwest University where I studied, whether it's the Marketing and Advertising Leader of the Year by the Global Brands magazine in 2019, or the best advertising leader in the country, and so on. So these are awards that I've had the privilege of receiving over the years. And it just makes what I do all the more worth it. So I'll very quickly take you through a summary of the book, Servings of Self-Mastery, in short, punchy 10 servings. And that's how I like to deliver my talks, with just the headline and then just kind of build on it. And the first is quite a trite statement. We all believe it. We all live by it, which is, it's more important to serve a higher purpose than to serve yourself, right? So the world is a better place when we're all selfless, and when all we're guided by a higher purpose, when we realize that it's not about you, it's about being a better person. So the whole notion around Ubuntu, I am because you are, is what should be driving us. And that's a standard that I like to remind people to kind of reach for. And the second one is when I was planning my career at the end of my varsity, phase at Rhodes University in Grahamstown, I started reading widely around how can I shape my career, how can I plan my career path. And I read a leaf out of Andrew Carnegie's book, who at his heyday, he was the world's wealthiest person, but also the biggest philanthropist in the world. He was a steel industrialist of Scottish origin, but obviously American. And Andrew Carnegie said, split your life into 3/3. The first third, spend it accumulating as much wealth as possible. The second third, dedicated to accumulating as much education as possible. And the last third, spend all your time giving away all that you've learned and acquired. And that's why I decided that the first half of my life would be about acquiring knowledge, acquiring resources. And the second half of my career would be about distributing it, giving it back, talking, advising, and teaching and training people. And that's what I'm really trying to do with my life. And I think it's important to understand that all of us are individual brands, we're personal brands. We have a lot to learn from how brands are managed. So, brand management principles apply to self management, they apply to who you are, what is your unique selling proposition, why should we believe the benefits that you say you bring to the party, what are your strengths, what's your superpower, and what do you want people to say about you when you're not in the room, and at your memorial service, how would you like the speeches to go, what should we say about you? So that's the legacy that you want to leave. And I think starting with the end in mind behoves us to be quite intentional about how we show up, our value system, our character, our personality, and indeed what archetype do you actually represent? I think it's really important to be one with nature, learn from nature, observe nature. And I like the confidence of a rooster. I think it's okay to self-promote. I think it's important to talk about what you've done, what you've achieved, and how you've made the world a better place. Because what we do is not about us, it's for the benefit of society. And I think it's good that a lot more people show up, and because representation is important. The world is desperate for role models, and the world is desperate for good news. So I think by injecting positivity in telling these amazing stories of achievement really give people permission to dream. And I think it's important that we all spiritually grounded. So the reason I decided to dedicate the second half of my life to impacting society positively is based on my religious upbringing, it's based on my spiritual beliefs. I am a big fan of this verse, Luke 12, verse 48, that says, "To whom much is given, much is expected." So we're all aware of the challenges facing higher education in South Africa. We've got the missing middle, we've got the shortage of funding. A lot of young, deserving kids cannot access tertiary education because of lack of funds through no fault of their own. So I started an education fund beginning of 2024 at 3 universities, one at Rhodes University, at Northwest University, as well as UJ, where I invested seed capital, and I've been mobilizing society to contribute towards this. And through this, I've educated, and quite a number of students at universities, and this is something that's going to go on for as long as I'm able to share resources. So deciding that I want to make a difference, deciding that I want to be part of the solution was a big part of showing up, a big part of saying that it's one thing to admire problems in society, but it's quite another to take action, and to know that all of us actually do have enough, and we are indeed in a position to share. So this was just an example of what I did when we launched this education fund, just speaking on campuses, and that's from Rhodes University days. This is just to say that continuous learning, continuous education is critical for me. That's why I'm a strong proponent of you cannot pour from an empty cup. There's always something new to learn. We're never too old to learn. There's lots of free resources online. There's lots of books to be read. There's lots of talks to attend. And I constantly believe that with the world, developing as fast as it is, we need to ensure that we are front-footed. Moore's law tells us that technology will double every 24 months. I don't need to tell you that that is no longer the case. Things are changing super, super fast in the world of AI, generative AI. And I think this notion of human beings need to be in control of technology as opposed to the other way around is what the world needs. We need ethical AI, we need responsible deployment of AI, and we need to inject humanity in all our decisions. So constant learning, being a student of life means you participate without judgment, and being a student for life means continuous learning, pouring into your cup so that you remain this lighthouse that shines its way to kind of guide others. And I think it's important to make the most of today. Tomorrow is not guaranteed. I think there's enough problems in the world today for us to realize that life is precious, and life, needs to be preserved. I think it's important to remember that as we're leading ourselves through this difficult time and this complex time and this challenging time in the world, order, whether it's global politics, geopolitical tensions, geoeconomic tensions, it's really important to show up positively, to really spread positivity, and to cherish the moment. I think the next 24 hours is the kind of decisive challenge when it comes to mental health challenges that people speak about. The ability to push through today and wake up tomorrow is quite an achievement. So I like to remind people that don't wait, for your chickens to hatch before you count them. Count them now. Find that second wind. Inject, happy home. Release those happiness hormones. Be aware of the state of mind you have, and just course correct. We are able to reset our thoughts. We're able to reset our feelings. We have to acknowledge what it is we're thinking and feeling, and question, the validity of those thoughts and feelings. And most of the time, you'll find that these are self-limiting beliefs based on previous traumas, based on previous histories. But I think everyone needs to know that you are able to reset and rewire your mind and really get yourself out of a difficult state into a positive state. After all, that's what grit, that's what resilience is about. It's about acknowledging the challenges, but it's about getting up, dusting yourself off, and really remembering that you are the destiny of where you need. I mean, you are the master of your destiny, and you can determine how your day is going to be. It's important to have effort, but I think effort without results is inconsequential. Everybody looks at impact, everybody looks at results. When you are entrusted with resources in your place of work, there's expectation that you will deliver return on that investment. So I encourage people to carry on, to push, to not give up, to achieve results, because ultimately, we have to make trade-offs. There is a scarcity of resources, and we have to ensure that whatever it is we do is impactful and really lifts the bar. So actions without results is inconsequential. It's important to push until you achieve something. Perspective is everything. If you want to change how you see the world, you have to change the way you look at the world. You have to change your lenses. I think a reminder for people to constantly widen their aperture so that the perspective is broad. And very often we say to people, step back from the chaos, get onto the balcony and observe the dance floor, and you'll get a different perspective, as opposed to being caught in the weeds, as opposed to, as a leader especially, being in the arena, playing in the arena. You need to step back and get a broader perspective, and that way you're actually able to lead effectively. So we have to change our perspective. We have to change how we see things. We have to question this notion of critical analysis, and critical thinking is important. And in fact, when you look at Education 4.0 today, it says we require people that are active citizens who are going to, take on the challenge of fixing the ills of society, of driving natural justice in society, of being critical thinkers, of analyzing what's going on and coming up with solutions, and really creating the sense of wonder, the sense of we can shape the future if we join this what if movement, if we imagine a different kind of world. The role that I had at Google was about using the best of digital technology to really uplift lives and livelihoods. And if you think about it, Google was started by two Stanford PhD students who said, what if we organized the world's information and made it universally accessible and helpful? And the first part was Google search was about aggregating all the world's websites so that through a search query, you're able to access information. And the second product was about what if we got people from point A to point B in the fastest possible time, and that's Google Maps. And YouTube was about what if we created a platform where people could share all that they know, whether it's education, entertainment, infotainment, and so on and so forth. So I think for me, perspective is key. You really can change the lenses, and you will see a very different picture. And lastly, I think it's important to pace yourself. It's important to cut yourself some slack. We live in a very competitive world, a very fast-paced world where being first is everything, but really slow and steady wins the race. I think we have to take stuff in our stride. We have to have psychological safety in our relationships, in organizations. We have to allow people permission to fail. We have to encourage people to experiment, to take chances, and just to actually give it a shot, because a lot of people end up being caught up in analysis paralysis because of fear of failure. And that's understandable, because as human beings, we're driven by two motivations. We're driven by fear, we're driven by love. So if you operate from a position of fear, all you're doing is avoiding losing. Whereas if you position yourself as somebody who operates from a position of love, you're playing to win. So I like to encourage people to play to win, to really think big and dream big. And remember, you can't walk this journey alone. So having a Sherpa to help you to navigate the journey with you, to advise you of pitfalls that are coming, to tell you that you will summit. It does get easier after the last sort of uphill, and to have coaches, to have mentors in your life. Excuse me, to have your own board of directors, advisors, people that understand you, people that are there to encourage you and to build you. So that's what I wanted to share with you today, the journey that I've traveled, the experience that I've had as a corporate exec, leading some of the biggest multinationals, as an academic who's been teaching people and building careers and helping people navigate their way through life, through coaching, through mentorship, as an author, who's trying to package all of these learnings together to make them accessible through these bite-sized chapters that are very short and to the point. I'm a strong believer in neurodiversity, so I don't have these massive long chapters where you've read 30 pages and you feel like you still haven't finished the chapter. So they're quite to the point, they're quite succinct. And also I've written the books in such a way that they're non-sequential, so you can go from chapter 1 to chapter 10, chapter 15, come back to chapter 2, almost like a Quentin Tarantino movie. And then of course with the journal, I've really created a space for the reader to engage with the content, to make notes, to make commitments and declarations, and to really work through the content. So I try and keep it conversational, try and keep it accessible. But thank you very much for your attention today. And I look forward to doing some work with you, like I've done with many other great people around the world. And yeah, and there's a great TED Talk out there for you to watch if you want to get to know my story a little bit deeper. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Alistair. That was really good. A lot to think about. Is there anybody who has any questions?
Good morning, everyone. Clive here. Dr. Mokoena, that was incredible. And thank you for sharing that. I think as someone that has spoken to you a couple of times, I know how important education is to you and imparting that knowledge. What I want to find out, and I've been making notes of your 10 sort of key principles, in terms of your talks for organizations, for the benefit of everyone, can you just take me through some of the themes that you cover more broadly? I know ethical leadership is something that you're also quite passionate about, but just if you were to speak for an organization, what are the themes that you would be covering, and what are the themes that you have covered in your talks, and how impactful do you think they have been, those organizations?
Great. Thanks very much for that question, Clive. Good to see you. I think the first space that a lot of people kind of speak to me about is come and facilitate strategy formulation, strategy development. You've run big businesses, you've seen these challenges, you've managed to grow business and lead people. Help us through strategy. Then there's also chats around culture and change management. We're grappling with trying to redefine our culture. We're going through change. There's new leadership, new thinking, and we need someone to help us shape that. So I do that. And then there's specific conversations around marketing, especially the digitalization of marketing, marketing transition, growing marketing maturity. So kind of helping businesses think about how do they become a digital marketing outfit. So I do a lot of digital marketing transformation work. Sometimes it's about just digital transformation and AI. So come and inspire us on digital transformation case studies. What should we expect from AI? Should we be scared of AI? What is this notion of generative AI? What are some of the tools? So I speak about that. And then the area of leadership. It's broad leadership. Come and speak about leadership, speak about self-mastery, speak about your book and some of the key principles from there. Recently I also did some work around customer engagement. So help us think about customer, how do we become better at customer engagement? And how do we, whether it's B2B or B2C, how do we bring in technology? How do we bring in automation to really become much more efficient without losing the human touch? So those are some of the key areas. So strategy, leadership, digital technology or AI, digital transformation, digital marketing, as well as customer engagement.
you have any sort of favorites? I mean, I love the questions I've asked, Alistair, and I think a lot of the audience listening now and to the recording will sort of pick up on this. So do you have any sort of, talks that you've done recently or in the past where you've walked off and thought, I really enjoyed that? You just got that feeling that you've absolutely connected, and I know that's important to you.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah.
so three weeks ago, I was invited to speak at the Harvard Africa Development Conference in Boston. Luckily I had a visa, so within a matter of days, I was on a plane to Boston, and I spoke about education outcomes in Africa and how they can benefit from digital technology and new learning systems and stuff. And that's a topic that's very close to my heart. So that I really, 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 thoroughly enjoyed. And I also spoke recently at UCT Business School around customer engagement. How do you engage customers in these difficult times when the typical customer doesn't want to come into the office anymore? So a lot of things are online. How do we, use things like chatbots without seeming cold? And how do we inject a lot more of a human feel into frontline stuff? And how do we use social media marketing to engage customers, so those are some of the burning topics that people are interested in right now. And it's just great to have the opportunity to share some of these case studies, because I've seen them, working for a company like Google, where you pretty much work with anyone and everyone from small to large, public, private, throughout, the entire value chain, whether it's manufacturing, supply chain, logistics, marketing. How do we digitize? How do we drive efficiencies and effectiveness? Also, having run a large advertising agency like Ogilvy, where you're solving business problems through marketing solutions, and I think we had in excess of 150 clients, so working across those different worlds. And then prior to that, running FCB, and prior to that, being a marketing director, whether at APSA or Cadbury, where you just exposed to large organizations that are going through change, trying to win with the customer. And I think when you think about all of that, at the heart of it is, how do we win? How do we play to our strengths and that competitive edge? How do we ensure that we define those lifetime, customer values? How do we create a single, uh, kind of vision of the customer, so that everybody in the organization has access to the right insights, the right data, and so on? And these are topics that every organization wants to talk about.
It's just so well answered. Thank you. And I can see how that could work. I mean, they're getting a view, a third-party view, so somebody a little bit one step removed from the company, but who has got all this vast experiences of working in multiple companies like you have. So yes, and I'm beginning to see. Was it point number 5 about don't be afraid to have the confidence, and not be afraid to tell people what you're able to do, because that's exactly what we want to do. Thank you.
Absolutely right. And also, I think what I've seen is you get organizations that love frameworks and models, and being a professor, I mean, that's what I deal with. I work with models, frameworks, and theories, and we kind of unpack that. But just kind of occupying the sweet spot of being the intersection of corporate and academia, I think, is really attractive to a lot of people, where you're able to draw on your corporate experience and speak about, this is how we actually did it, or this is how we advised 500 companies to do it. And then on the other hand, academically, here are the latest conversations around these topics, right? So this constant reading of case studies and articles, and also writing these things, helps you distill solutions very, very quickly. And I think bringing that to life in a sort of a book for people to take away and read, bringing it to life in very engaging workshops where I use gamification through cards, through videos, through various, sort of different modes of delivery. I think people really enjoy that. And also, I'm a big believer in this notion that questions reveal and answers conceal. So a lot of what I do is about asking provocative questions to help people get to their own answers, as opposed to coming in and say, I'm this professor, I'm this executive, I've written books, and here's all the theory I have for you. I prefer to turn it around and really empower people to find their own solutions through quite incisive questioning. Yeah. I see there's a few questions online that I'm also happy to answer. One of them is is the book available online? Yes, the book is available online. I also narrated my first book myself, so the audio book is available for those that prefer audio. I also do PR and communication, and I help with advertising also, because I've done quite a bit of that. Yeah, it's definitely on Kindle, on Amazon. Then there's a question about, I hear you speak a lot about marketing. Do you touch on PR and advertising and the difference thereof? Yeah. So, I mean, I ran the largest agencies which had PR in them, which had advertising, which had activations. And now that I've spent the last kind of 5 years helping marketing teams and departments transition from traditional marketing to digital marketing, but also from a consulting perspective, helping businesses go through digital transformation, which is broader than just marketing transformation. So this notion of digital maturity being the broader umbrella concept, and within that you've got digital marketing maturity, supply chain maturity, manufacturing maturity, logistics maturity, and that's really about digital transformation, having access to data, automating what you can, and really ensuring that everything syncs quite nicely to give you that 30% uplift in efficiencies and 20% cost reduction, which are the numbers that people see when they grow their maturity levels from a digital perspective.
No, that's excellent. What I also wanted to ask, Dr. Mokoena, as you were speaking about workshops as well. So not only do you do talks both locally and internationally, you also do a lot of workshops, offer a lot of workshops to organizations. Can you just take me through the how do you structure the workshops and how does that work? Because it's important for me and my team as a customer manager to be able to communicate that offering to our clients. Not only do you give keynotes on these very important topics, but you are also available to give workshops. I just am interested to know, does it depend on the company's need in terms of how long the workshop is, or do you have a structure that you've got where it's a week-long workshop or a day workshop?
Okay, so it really just depends on the client. Some clients like to do pre-reading. So we'll sit with the client, speak about, okay, so what is the likely sort of impact coming out of here? What would you like people to think, feel, and do? So we work through all of that. We talk about what are the main objectives, what's the key messaging, what are some of the context I need to be aware of, what are some of the things we'd like to surface. And then I ask about the learning styles of the organization. Do they like to read a lot of things? Okay, then give them some pre-reading, 1 or 2 articles to read beforehand. Some people like to give you questions beforehand. And then I also ask, are we dealing with a lot of, say, engineers who might prefer models and frameworks to kind of work with and play with? Yes. And then if we're dealing with some people stuff that needs to be surfaced, and maybe we need an outsider to kind of agitate and really get people and create a safe space, then we kind of look at that. And then I also use a lot of questions and exercises for people to kind of think about. I like, using playing cards where I hand out cards that have a question on them or a message on them, where people get to think about it, speak, and really, share their feelings and frustrations and so on. And I like to kind of co-create things. I also use symbolism quite a lot. So bring a symbol to represent something that you want to speak about. If you don't have the words, use metaphors and so on. So yeah, so I work with the client to understand what is their preference. And some workshops are a day, some are 2 days. So it really just kind of depends.
No,
And I think
you.
what also people enjoy is having the book as a takeaway, so they can cross-reference and keep reminding themselves. And then I think sometimes if teams are looking to build norms and team rituals, then we also have that as an outcome of a series of workshops, and then people co-develop these things, which help them have rules of engagement for each other when I'm not in the room, when they're kind of back in the organization.
Gotcha.
Sorry, I was just stuck on mute there. Thanks so much, Alistair. That was really powerful. I think we all have the power to change, and sometimes we just need that push and to understand how we can get there. But what stood out for me was when you said you have to have confidence of a rooster, shine like a lighthouse, leave in your legacy, reset yourself, and cut yourself some slack. I think we all need to do that. And I think you've really helped people in so many different ways. And I think your book is probably a life changer. So for my side, I think it's something definitely that people have to read. So thank you everybody for taking the time out your day to listen to Alistair and all the knowledge that he's got. And next week we're going to have a look at Marlo. He's going to be on, and he's going to be talking about the power of engagement and personal development, and that will be at 9 o'clock. So thank you everybody, and thank you so much, Alistair.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks.